It's 3 o'clock. I had to do commercials. Okay, let's start with the panel, okay? Get your cameras rolling. Here we go.
Step forward.
Our first guest, who has been in some of my favorite films of all time, movies like Attack of the Crab Monsters. And I actually own a DVD of that.
Played the title role, the crab.
An Invasion of the Saucer Men.
Saucer played the saucer.
And A Bucket of Blood. My favorite films, I have them on DVD, I swear it. Please welcome Mr. Ed Nelson.
Go around in front of these people. Hi, nice to see you again.
And,
Boy, I'm gonna need these in a few years. I better stop playing.
and also a very young, lovely lady. She was in The Brain from Planet Arrows. Another classic film with John Agar. Actually, she did a lot of films with John Agar. And a favorite of mine, a film called I Saw What You Did with Joan Crawford. She's in that one too. Please welcome Joyce Meadows.
Hello, Miss Meadows. Nice to see you again.
And from the classic film, South Pacific. Please welcome Franz Nuyen. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this gentleman, this classic guy. Please welcome Fayard Nicholas.
Yes, sir. I'll get you up there.
And of course, you have any questions, get your hand up. We'll go to your questions. Okay, questions. We have our first question from Mr. Bill Black over on there. Okay, the question is about the brain eaters that Ed produced.
Well, I have a hearing aid. I didn't hear any of that, but I'll answer it anyway. I'll make up something. The Brain Eaters was originally called The Attack of the Giant Leeches. That was another picture. Roger liked the title. Roger Corman, my teacher. Anyway, and so we made the Brain Eaters instead. We didn't have a title. We had to make that up. There weren't enough brains in Hollywood to do it, so we did it in Pomona, California, little town where I lived, and I told the police officers there, don't you repeat this now, that we were going to do a series there, and this was the pilot. So I got 7 cars, 14 uniforms, a bunch of guns and sirens and things like that. We didn't have much of a script, but we had a wonderful monster. Maybe you all remember getting it for your kids. It looked like a ladybug about this big and had antennas, and it would bump into things and turn and go that way, and then bump into something and go back this way. And we decided to take those little springs with the round knobs on them and get rid of those and put some pipe cleaners in there. And we covered the ladybug with crepe hair. That's false hair that they used a lot in the old days in theater. And we shot it in my garage. We moved some things, and just put the thing on the floor. And, cameras are wonderful except for these things. With no lights, you can't photograph anything, so we just lit it, and that's the only time you ever saw the creature. The rest of the time they buried themselves in the back of your neck. Never said why or quietly or anything else, But the audience wanted a monster, and you could have put anything in there. Science fiction is wonderful that way, because you want a creature. And so who cares what it looks like? It's what it does. It makes a zombie out of anybody that does that. Now, it just happened that I played the lead in the picture. Well, there was a big line of people waiting, and they were so expensive that I thought I'd do it practically for nothing. Anyway, at one time, the picture The Brain Eaters was the 3rd worst picture that was ever made. It's in that little book. He got an old one. Since then, it's dropped way down. Way down. I guess some other people made some too for $1.50. And now Leonard Nimoy played a 2,000-year-old man in that picture that came up from the bottom of the earth in a screw-like vehicle that went up, I think, 25, 30 feet. John Anderson built it for me. He was my neighbor. He was a carpenter. And he was a swell fellow, and he did a good job on that thing. It only had half side. I mean, you don't have to photograph the whole thing. But from the other side, we just turned it around, and photographed that side of it. It was a wonderful picture. We made it for $185,000 in 1950 late, 1950 somewhere after 50, but before 60. And the great thing about it was Leonard did the picture for $45 in my garage. We shot him in my garage too. We didn't have a studio close by. And I owe him $45. I haven't paid him yet. He brings it up every time I talk to him on the phone from time to time. I think that's why his ears got so pointed. But that's about the whole, did I leave anything out there? That's about, he's my agent. And that's about the whole story of the brain eaters. The lady that starred in it, Jane Cowell, something like that, she went on to be a great writer, screenwriter, and did the something ballroom, dancing, two people. It won an award or something. What?
Stardust Ballroom?
Yeah. What do you say?
Stardust Ballroom.
Stardust Ballroom, that's right. I got a hearing aid, so I'm going to hear some funny things from you folks. And I'm glad you asked that question. Any other questions for me?
I also want to introduce Catherine Nicholas there at the end. So,
hello.
welcome, Catherine.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Catherine.
Tim.
Catherine had an announcement to make yesterday and did a wonderful job on me.
Okay,
You're
well,
full of it, Ed. Look at his face. It's almost as red as his shirt.
Yeah. Makeup, it's all makeup.
more questions out there. More questions? Okay, let's stick with Roger Corman. You did a lot of films with Roger Corman.
I did.
Tell us about Roger.
Actually, I was the title in the role in the Attack of the Crab Monsters. I worked the crab. I was inside that creature, working the eyes with some wires. And if you ever get a chance to see it, you're going to see a performance from my feet. There's one shot with a girl who got the part because of her brilliant brain, scientist, Pamela Duncan, who was very good in it, incidentally. She's a photographer scientist, and she got a picture of this giant crab. And she said, oh my God. They didn't say God in those days. She had to cut that off. Oh my God. I said, what is it? What is it? Look at this. This one's pregnant. Long before abortion and all of that, And they looked there and they showed a close-up of the crab, and there were my feet hanging out the bottom of the crab. That's a true story. If you ever see the crab monster, hold that shot for a moment, and you see my feet hanging out the bottom. I watched it in the movie with my wife, and I jumped up. There's my feet! People looked around because, like you are now, wondering what I was talking about. But that was one of them. She Gods of Shark Reef. I got to shoot myself, kill myself. I played two parts. That was interesting. I didn't even know it was me I shot. I was a guard walking along. If you remember, those of you who remember She Gods of Shark Reef, well, don't raise your hands. I know you've all seen it. And I was a guard walking along with a rifle, and I had one of those pith helmets on, right? And later on, we were shooting another picture, and I played a guy swimming at San Pedro and climbing up on a wharf, and Roger had me shoot off left to right, And when I saw the picture, She Gods of Shark Reef, I was the guy that shot the guy that was walking along garden and got shot. And I was both of those guys on both ends of the bullet, and I didn't even know it. And I only got one credit on that picture. It was kind of a disappointment, Roger was wonderful, though. Don't misunderstand. It was like an obstacle course, They say he made 2 pictures before he knew you could go take 2. Now, I assume you all know what take 2 is, because Roger didn't know either for a long time. And but he was wonderful to work for. You know, he had some other big people come out of there. Jack Nicholson, you know, had done a couple of terrible pictures for him, and Francis Ford, either Coppola or Coppola, whichever you want to call, he directed or something with him, and so it was. I first did a picture in New Orleans outside with him called The Swamp Women. Beverly Garland, Joe Jarman, Carolyn Matthews, and a lot of other people. Touch Connors, who later became Mike Connors. Touch was a basketball player at UCLA, got the name Touch. And it was great. I had to wrestle an alligator, a live alligator. And the only reason I had to wrestle him was he had sat in the sun all day in the back of a pickup truck with his mouth taped up. And when we put him in the bayou, he went right to the bottom. So me and Bob Jones, the guy who brought the alligator out there, had to go in the bayou and hold him up while Touch came along with that knife that goes up in the handle and jabbed him, killed him right there, you know. And that's how I became a giant movie star.
Okay, Joyce Meadows.
Is she great? I'm going to ask her a question. Now, Joyce, no.
Joyce, working with John Agar, you did quite a few films with John Agar. What was John like to work with?
I have to follow it, Nelson? Okay. John Agar unquestionably was probably one of the sweetest men you'll ever meet in your life. He had quite a history. He was the gentleman that married Shirley Temple when he was very young. In that John Wayne movie, he always claimed that it was John Wayne who taught him how to act, because evidently he did several films with John Wayne. I got reacquainted with John and his wife Loretta many years after I did all those movies. And I had the privilege of sitting together with him at the Ray Court memorabilia shows at the Beverly Garland Theater in Los Angeles. And it was wonderful, before he passed away, to have that privilege of being around both of them again, because I did a couple of those memorabilias with him. And he was king of the B movies, and I think I was one of about 20 women who did movies with him, science fiction films and westerns between the two. But he was a dear man. He never liked to be called Mr. Agar. Everybody said that was his father's name, his guys too. And he said his name was John. And never had a crush on him, though. I just adored him, but it was nothing sexual there. But anyway, I have nothing but kind words, and anybody that I know that ever worked with John had nothing but kind words to say about him. So he left a very loving legacy, I have to say.
And Ed, have you worked with John Agar?
I have to mention, she was talking about how wonderful he was. He really was.
Yeah.
I mean, John and Loretta, and there were several other couples in the Los Angeles area that were actors when I first came out there that took us in. I mean, they told us about agents, and they told us about, what to do and what not to do. John Agar was that kind of a guy. And there were several others, Ricardo Montalban and his wife. They were very, very good to us, Georgiana. And Patsy and I didn't know anything. I mean, we came, I came out of New Orleans and St. James Major Parish in the Navy and got almost kicked out of Tulane, and I didn't know anything. I mean, I did a couple of movies, where he fell in the water and held up an alligator. And yet there were 4, 5, or 6 couples, that said, this guy's walking into the wall. Let's tell him where the door is, and they were wonderful. John and Loretta Agar in particular were very kind.
to add to that, my very first time I was ever in front of the camera is a movie that's been following me around for all my life that I did with John called The Brain from Planet Eros. I had never ever done a film, television or anything else until I had the lead with John in that movie, and I had no idea of the camera lingo that everybody talked about. So John, between the cameraman and John, they kept training me about the techniques of where to hit your marks and what to do. And they had to shoot many pages at the same time because you didn't have a whole lot of money in that film. And we memorized 5 or 6 pages at one time. We had a wonderful cameraman that knew how to move in and out of 2 shots, long shots, and everything else. Sort of what they do today, but because he held the camera on his shoulder, and that's kind of the way they do digital filming today. But he did it way back then, held his camera, and just moved while we did this 5-page scene. And they were concerned that I hadn't been in front of the camera before, and I didn't know what they were worried about. Finally, I explained to them I had done a few plays and memorized 3 acts, so 5 pages wasn't going to bother me any. But John did the same thing. He helped me all the way through that movie. It was great. I don't know what I would have done without him, really. He made me look professional.
Okay, any questions out there yet? Yeah, Alan.
Mr. Nichols, about working with Gene Kelly.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm going to talk about
Working
that.
with Gene Kelly.
Yeah, my brother and I did a film with Gene Kelly that starred Gene Kelly and Judy Garland. And we did a number with Gene called Be a Clown.
Oh, no.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yes.
And I can remember we were rehearsing, my brother and I, with Gene. And Gene and I were push-pine and just working our heads off. But my brother was just taking it easy. And Gene looked at my brother and says, come on, Harold, what's the matter with you? Your brother and I are working like man, and you just loafing around. My brother said, I got it. And Gene said, you can't have it working like that. He says, yes, I'm telling you, I got it. And then Gene said to me, your brother says that he has it, but I don't believe him. I'm going to ask him to do this routine all by himself. Okay, Harold, you got the dance? You can do it? He said, yes, I got it. He said, well, do it by yourself. My brother said, oh, no. Okay, I'll do it. Do you know, my brother went through the whole routine without making one mistake.
Yeah, do you love people like that?
And Gene was so mad. He said, well, I'll be a SOB. And then Gene said, stop the rehearsal. Stop this rehearsal. Let's go to lunch. And that's what happened on the set of the Pirate at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
Franz, 2 actors that you worked with in a movie called Satan Never Sleeps, William Holden and Clifton Webb. What do you recall about working with those 2 actors?
Well, I absolutely adore Clifton Webb, and I have a very funny story about Clifton and I. I wasn't due to work for a whole week and a half, and I was left in a hotel that had a French chef who was the Wednesday breakfast chef of the Queen Elizabeth, I think. And he was born in my hometown in Marseille, and he didn't know what to do to celebrate the fact that I was a movie star and I came from his hometown, and I was there in that hotel where he worked at the Dorchester. And he said, I will cook you anything you want. Whatever you want, I will cook it for you. So I said, can you make me a rouille? And a rouille is a sauce which is made in the south of France, which is tons of garlic and hot pimentos, and it's red, a kind of a red mayonnaise of some kind, and it's very, very hot, and you put it on very special fish, which only are from the region where I come from. So you had the fish flown in, and so in between meals, I was in this little cubicle in that huge kitchen, and we sang and we drank and we ate all that garlic and all that. And when he escorted me back to my room, he said, I think we better take the service elevator because the vapor was just unbelievable. And so we took the service elevator, went to my bedroom, and I was just so filled of song and poetry, and the two of us were like talking and reciting poetry, and we had a grand time. And I went to sleep. And the next morning they said, we have a problem with another scene. Can you come in and work? Well, I went to work. I could have killed flies 15 feet away. And poor Clifton thought I had done it in purpose. I don't know what I did to make him forgive me, but he eventually believed that I had not done it on purpose. And became the sweetest man with a wonderful, charming humor, a little bit biting humor, a little bit of sarcasm, and very much a gentleman and an extraordinary talent. So I'm very proud to have been working with him. As for Bill, handsome Bill, Bill was kind of the person that you want to see from far away. He looked wonderful, he was graceful as can be, and I don't know why he just scared me. So I didn't approach him. You know, the very handsome man, you just feel that they should be on a white horse and you don't want to do anything else. But actually I worked more than once with Bill, but the first time I went by the wayside and somebody more clever than me replaced me. But he was definitely an extraordinarily handsome, charming man, and just glorious to look at.
Okay, questions? Yes, right over there. Working on One More Train to Rob, France?
Oh, well, lucky for them, I knew how to ride a horse, because basically the studio, when you go for an interview and you read the lines and they give you a script, and they never ask you whether you can ride. So I was able to, you know, I'm very happy with horses. I actually talk to horses. I'm one of those people. George was a master of training a German Shepherd. And we worked very, very late at night with the train stations, the train scenes, and it was shot in the back of Universal. And I would go to work at 10 o'clock at night and probably come back at 5 in the morning or something like that. So because I live in the canyon, and I would take my very large German Shepherd with me, 150-pound, all muscle kind of guy, who ran my house. He was my best babysitter, and he just told me what to do. I just followed what my dog said. And so I would take it. And George family apparently bred German Shepherds and trained them. And he took a look at me being the slave of my dog, and he said, give me your dog, just give me your dog. So for 3 weeks that we work on the backlot at night, he trained Lulu. And Lulu, being that enormous beast, didn't figure out that there was a big, tall, blonde fellow that could actually lift him by the neck. And he had a choke chain on, so every time Lulu just looked at him like, say, take a hike, you know. And every time George said, okay, fellow, pick him up. So by the end of the shot, I could actually go down Beverly Drive without a leash with my dog at my feet, go into the Bank of America and do my business and just do my hand signal, and he would follow me and people would just go, oh my God. And were in awe of that enormous beast being my slave for a change. Until Lulu figured out that I couldn't lift him by the neck. And overnight we reverted to the first mode. But we had a lovely time. It was a strange time. I'm not sure that George wanted to do that film. I think, I don't know if you know, George Fayard was a very self-mastered kind of a man, and often didn't let the studio dictate to him what they wanted. So he was, in that film, he was kind of trapped into making that film. Not that it wasn't something that he really wanted to do, but it was something that he had agreed to do to finish the contract and, get on to better things. And he went on, I think, to several other wonderful films, and of course the A-Team, which made him a fortune. But that's my story. Basically, Lulu is the one that has the memory of the One More Train to Rob.
Oh, we got another George Fayard story here from Ed.
I'm sorry to lean in on people that we've worked with. George did the pilot for Banachek, his series. And as usual, I was the bad guy in the piece. We shot it down out of Palm Springs at a place called Borrego Canyon. It looked like the surface of the moon. And I think it was a story based on, burying a school bus or something in the sand. Anyway, after it was over, they were very pleased, and I didn't like George a lot. I didn't like him a little. I mean, I didn't like him. George was in a lot of big movies, and this was a TV series, which was kind of, where some people go to hide sometimes when they're not working. Well, he had a wonderful party. He was always very nice to me, don't misunderstand me, but who wouldn't be? Yeah, right. So we would at a party afterwards that George gave at a big steakhouse closer to Palm Springs than Borrego Springs or where that was. And we were all having a wonderful time, and it was a big round table, a round booth, and we were drinking and telling jokes, and people were taking glasses and balancing forks, and making sounds. And, it was a great thing. And I had just learned from my stuntman a wonderful trick that he did perfect. He took a pat of butter and he folded his napkin long way and he put it in the middle and he folded it a couple of times. And he said, you know what? Pow! And he pulled it quickly and the butter disappeared. Nobody saw that. It went up on the roof. Man, don't be careful. Try it at home a couple of times first. There's something up there to protect. Because I thought I'd try it. I had never done it before. I can't remember the lady in the picture. But anyway, she and George were friends. And I said, wait a minute. I know a trick. Give me that butter, And I got it all out and folded it. Let's see, was there some way he folded it? Well, I folded it. I said, okay, everybody know that butter's in there, right? And I thought to myself, how high up is that ceiling? Well, too late now, And I went, pow! And the butter came out. And it went right across the table. And it landed on his girlfriend's chest. Which had no clothes on it. Well, everybody laughed but two people. George and the lady. And they said, good night, thank you, got in the limousine and drove off. Let me say, I have never tried that again. But George was kind of cool and aloof, and that was all right, I didn't want to know him that much better anyway.
Okay, more questions. Questions out there? Okay, let's go to Joyce, talking about working on a movie called I Saw What You Did. working with John Ireland, who I believe kills you in that movie. Does he kill you?
Well, oh dear. Yeah, in the shower?
Yeah, in the shower scene.
Well, you know, it was fake stuff. You know, here I am. You didn't kill me. No, it wasn't a scene I enjoyed at all, really, because it was, you know, your imagination goes with you, but it was done in such a way that he never touched me, really. I'm trying to remember technically how it was done, but that's very difficult. But those kinds of scenes, the way they cover it, you know, say like if somebody is you're getting the effect of something monstrous that somebody's doing, the camera goes around the other way, and your acting ability is the one that's supposed to be, you know, giving it out that this is what's happening to you. And then if it goes around to him, there's some dummy there that he's mangling and carrying on with, and so on and so forth. So it's all very, very well planned, and no, you know, in that way. It was a very kinds of scenes that I don't go to movies to see, and I find myself in one. My experience in that movie was Joan Crawford, basically. She was the type of lady that if anybody was younger than she was, she would not appear on the set. And try and think of any movie other than a child, or very, very young, that she was ever in with. I mean, Betty Davis, I think, was older than her or something. I don't know. Anyway. But she thought the scene was over, the particular scene, because they were going to move to a set that she was in, and a scene that she did. And I heard this very deep, you know, hoarse voice making all kinds of sounds as I was walking away, and it was really Joan Crawford bawling out the whole, the crew. Well, I shouldn't say the crew, just the ACs, ADs, the assistant directors, of which there were around 3 of them, that I wasn't off the set before she got on the set. And she was just totally irate, and we had nothing to do. I never had a scene with her. I was already dead as far as the movie was concerned, you know. And I just, I was very shocked at that, and she wasn't the only character actress that felt that way. As time went on, I found that out, but she was very frightening when she walked on the set and was yelling at the top of her lungs of how angry she was that this young woman was on the set before she, you know, it was still on the set, and they let her come on the set.
It's called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Something.
Who is the fairest of them all?
Yeah. So that was the kind of experience, but I really didn't, you know, and those kind of things, you don't work with John Ireland. I got to know him, and we chatted, you know, before and after the scenes, but in the actual scene, I really didn't work with him.
Well, it was directed by William Castle, who did a lot of those type of films.
Yeah.
What do you remember about William Castle?
Not a whole lot, because my part was small. All I know that he was very technical. You certainly could appreciate, because he had everything diagrammed down to the, you know, to the minutest detail on how he wanted something like that shot. And the crew loved working with him because of that. There was no doing it over and things not working and so on. So he was, he did a fantastic storyboard. Do you know what a storyboard is? It's all, yeah, a lot of shaking yeses. Well, his technical things were all on that storyboard in great detail. It was fascinating to see. It would be nice to have a storyboard like that today, but I'm sure, you know, technical things because of computers are done. But that was before computers, before anything was done on computers and stuff. So I was quite impressed with that, you know, that he was so detailed in how he wanted a shot to be set, and how he wanted a thing to be shot on the set. But the scene scared me. I was glad when it was over.
Okay, questions out there? Yes, right down in front.
This is for Mr.
Okay.
Yes?
With all those amazing dance routines that you and your brother did, were either of you ever injured?
Well, not really. But I'd like to tell you something that happened to us in New York City. We were doing a show at the Roxy Theater. And the theater's not there anymore. And the producer of the show that we were doing got an idea that he wanted us to do something like we did in the movie Stormy Weather, coming down those stairs. And so the orchestra was on stage, and they built these steps on each side of the orchestra. And said, fellas, I want you to dance up the stairs and get right into the middle. Now I want you to jump over the orchestra. I said, what? Jump over the orchestra into a split. I said, wait a minute. I said to my brother, wait a minute, what's going to happen here? He said, let's try it. So I said, okay, on the count of 3, we'll jump over the orchestra down to the stage in the split and dance off. He said, okay, here we go. I said, 1, 2, wait a minute, let me think. And I said, 1, 2, 3. So we jumped over the orchestra. It was beautiful. We landed on the stage and danced off, and then we went to our dressing room. And I said to my brother, I don't want to do that anymore. I hurt my heel. So my brother said, that's all right, I'll do it by myself. Say, when we dance up the stairs and you cross me, but you come back down the stairs and you look at me up there and you bring me down with your hands when I make this split, and then you bring me up. Say, fine, that's great. Okay. So this was before the theater opened. Yes, the Roxy Theater held about 6,000 people, and this was opening day. And so my brother gets up there, and I get up there, and I come down. Then I come down the stairs, and I'm waiting for him to come down. Come on, brother, come on down. So he comes down, makes the split, and then we get together, we dance off, and then we go to our dressing room. And my brother said, listen, you were right. I don't want to do that anymore either. So we found out something else to do. But that's the only time that I hurt myself. But it wasn't bad, because we continued the show, because we're doing 5 shows every day at the Roxy.
Oh, God.
But, oh, yes. Some places 8 shows a day. And so everything was fine. Everything was fine. We found something else to do. We still danced up those stairs. And then we danced down those stairs, and we got to the stage, and we just did something that wouldn't hurt us. That was the first time I hurt myself. And everything is fine now. It's all copacetic.
Okay, questions?
Does anybody has any idea what it takes to come back up from a split? It is humanly impossible. I mean, never mind going into the split, but coming back up?
No.
It can't be done.
Oh, we did it.
I know you did, but you see, nobody else can do it.
Oh, boy.
I've never had any trouble.
Oh, by the way.
Come on, Ed.
Would you like to do that now?
No, I'm not.
Oh, wait a minute. May I say a few words?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Or maybe it's a good afternoon. Glad to see you. Are you having fun? Oh, that's great. That's great. I know a lot of you out there are wondering, how did my brother and I do all those things that we did in the movies? Well, let me tell you, we did it very carefully. And let me tell you this, I don't want to do that anymore. And I'll tell you why. It hurts.
That's right.
But I can still move. I can't move like I used to. To tell you the truth, nobody moves like they used to. I just had a birthday last October the 20th. and I'm 90 years young. Let me tell you, being 90 is not old. You're old when your back goes out more than you do. Now that's like my friend Red Buzzard says, if you're walking down the street and someone will compliment you on your alligator shoes and you walking around in your bare feet, now that's old. Oh boy. Thank you. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. I mean, we're having so much fun. Such lovely people.
They are.
Oh,
They're
yes.
absolutely
You
wonderful.
people are everyone, whether you're from Asheville or not. I've never been to the South, so it's a whole new experience for me. I've done a lot of Tennessee Williams, but I've never been from the South.
Okay, any more questions out there? Any more questions? Bill Black. A question is for Ed, working on the TV series Peyton Place.
Peyton Place. It was a dirty book. You know, I was under contract at Universal for 3 years, and it was a good deal in those days. We're talking, mid-'60s, early '60s. Nobody had contract players, but Sharon Glass and myself and a few others were there. I think we had 6 or something. And what they did was they found out that they could get us a little cheaper if they had us under yearly contracts and we could work all the shows. Well, it was so good for us. I mean, Anthony Quinn had a series, Man in the City or something, and I got to work and meet and become friendly with Tony Quinn, And I did a movie of the week with Shelley Winters, and everybody said, "Oh God, are you in trouble?" Well, we got along great. It was a British a script that they had bought and did it as Alcor or Hitchcock or one of those. And it was the 2 of us, and she was wonderful, and we got along great. And I got to work, with James Mason, a lot of other people that otherwise I hadn't, get a chance to work with. So I really enjoyed it. My agent called me and said, after the 3rd year, and the good thing about their contract was, if you wanted to work out, say at MGM or something, they'd add that to the end of your time that you were under contract, but you could work out all you want. So I worked outside too. And my agent called me and said, they're doing an interesting series. No, first of all, he said, I want you to get out of contract this year. I don't want you to re-sign. Well, Patsy and I have 6 children, and that was a big jump, for me. Not having the 6 children, that was a joy. But just thinking, I said, wait. He said, well, they got a series going over there. And, I think you knew the producer, you worked for him in something, you'd worked for the director in something else, you worked for the executive producer in something else, and they'd be looking for a guy, that you could do. I said, what is it, Peyton Place? I said, I'm Catholic, I can't even read the book. What are you talking about? Well, I was only kidding, I could read the book, but I never read it, and they said, well, it's nothing like the book. I said, okay, I'll go over there. Well, I met everybody, and I didn't have to test or anything. Because I don't know, I played 3 different characters for all 3 of those guys, and they gave me the part. Now, in the book, you remember, and in the picture, Dr. Rossi, who I played, Mike Rossi, was the high school principal. But when they showed the pilot, they had, I don't know who they ever show those things to, but they check off people you like to see once in a while, and I packed it with my family. But anyway, they wanted to see me a little more than the high school principal because Ryan O'Neal, Barbara Parkins, Mia Farrow, those characters were going to graduate. And so they'd have no reason to have the principal around anymore. So they took Mike Rossi and made him the doctor, and they took the doctor and made him the editor, and they took, other characters and moved them around. And they used me in the script to bring the audience to the different families, because a doctor in a small town like that was the only one that knew everybody. And so I was kind of like a vehicle in a way. And I had a lot of girlfriends, I had about 8 that, we never could get married for some reason. One was already married, Marriott Hartley, and Leslie Nielsen was her husband. He came flying in from South America and took her all. Susan Oliver died off a cliff, committed suicide. I think because she found out I was gay. No. But anyway, it was a lot of Dorothy Malone, who was a wonderful, wonderful actress. And you know, Dorothy had a great sense of humor that was never filmed. And we used to laugh all the time. And then the great moment was when Mia Farrow cut her hair. That seemed to be a big earthquake around 20th Century Fox. She went to Vidal Sassoon, and from this long hair, cut it almost boy-like. Well, it was panic time. It wasn't in the script, you know. And Ben Nye, who was makeup at Fox, put on a bald head for me, completely bald, and a beautiful job. And I had the assistant director come on the set and say, Jack Hole, you remember Jack? Anyway, he said, hey, yeah, I know about Mia, but have you seen Nelson? So what do you mean? Hey, never mind, he's coming in now. And you know, the rest of the stage is fairly dark, except for the scene you're shooting. And I came in with this bald head. Well, they went absolutely bananas. It was perfect. It took the edge off of Mia. You know, we shot a little scene that way. Used it in the Christmas show. You know, they always do a little thing like that. And it was a good experience for me. We had some wonderful writers. Carol Sobieski went on to win a big Emmy and an Oscar even, and passed away early in her life. Paul Monash got Writer of All Time about 2 years ago for the Writers Guild of America. Did a lot of writing on The Sundance Kid. He was our executive producer. And the rest of the cast was fun to work with. Brian, you know, left-handed Irish kid, you know, looked around at a lot of the girls that came in and married 3 or 4 of them. I don't remember how many. But, and Barbara Parkins was a great gal who always wanted to be thinner than Mia and never could. And yet she was beautiful. So when it was over, everybody cried but me, you know. It wasn't my family, so, I mean, they were friends and like family, but they, you know, I wanted to go out and do something else. And that was a big mistake. No, but, you know, it was fine. And we did very well. You know, in those days, you couldn't rerun the ones that while you're on the air. So ABC needed the money, and we were still in the top 10 when they quit Peyton Place and sold it and made a lot of money to produce other pilots. A young guy on a sailing vessel was on the cover of Life magazine, and they did a big thing. It lasted about 4 months. And other pilots, it lasted good. So we didn't mind. We went on to other things, and it was the biggest show of my career as of yet. And so we enjoyed it. Any further questions about their personal lives? I refuse to answer.
I want to say something on the defense of contract that we all were under in those days. There was no such thing, or very rarely such thing as freelancing. You were under contract to a particular studio. If you were lucky, you were paid peanuts, and usually I got a raise of $100 a year per week. When I did South Pacific, I was actually paid less than the electrician on the film, and the same. I was on Broadway, and I was, you know, paying up close to nothing. But every time they gave you out to a studio to make a film or to make a play, that time was added up to the end of your 7 years contract. Mine eventually became a 10 years contract. And there was a lot of things against that because it restricted everything that you did. You were told how to speak, what to say, who to go out with, who to be photographed with, where you couldn't take a vacation unless you were told that that would be good for the studio. And you were totally controlled. On the other hand, they were making you into an actress, a professional, and a movie star. This is not happening anymore. You have young actors who are extremely successful, and you invite them somewhere, and they literally look like they are going to mop the floor in the bathroom in somewhere in a college camp, because they don't know how to dress, they have no respect for presentation. And in our days, Remember, we used to have little white gloves and we wore stockings and we never went out without makeup and our hair has to be done a certain way. And we really were molded. And what we have, the legacy, is this incredible cornerstone of the industry, like Greta Garbo and Ginger Rogers and all those unbelievable ladies that come. They always came out like of a fairy tale. They went to work with furs floating down their shoulders and a hat with feathers on, and they were something out of a dream that took you out of the reality of life. And I'm very grateful for what that concept had done for Hollywood. It created Hollywood. It created the magic of films. And even in the time where life was difficult, still is difficult for people, the movies are magic. This is what you can hold on in your dream and make your life bearable. And I think all those reality shows have lost the magic. They betrayed the essence of show business. All the films that Fayard made and those incredible dancers that made something to happen that it was magic. It was out of their tremendous strength and courage to do the impossible, gave us the idea that we were capable, or if we just had the opportunity and the courage to do all those wonderful things. If he could do it, maybe I could do it. And they were role models for courage in life. And I don't know if this exists anymore. And I think I can speak for all of us, but we had the best of Hollywood. We didn't get rich, but we had the best of Hollywood. We had what created the fantasy and the mirage of reality, because even in the darkest of somber film, with all the drama and melodrama and tragedy, you still had fake eyelashes and perfect lips, and you woke up in the morning with all your makeup on and all your hair in curls properly on the pillow, and you know it's nice. I don't want to go to the movies and see somebody looking really scruffy. I want to see those beautiful hair and those beautiful faces, and it just makes you feel good, you know. And I think we had the best, and the films that are made today are not made with the valor and courage that it took for extraordinary talent to make those feasts of the eye. And today it's made with technology. And I'm sorry, but technology is not courage. And to be a true performer, it takes courage. And I thank you for being there for us and being our public.
Thank you, France, for saying that. Thank you very much. You know, I guess the strange thing about being under contract so many years, that was broken up, you know, by Olivia de Havilland. And I did a movie of the week with her one time, a two Academy Award winning actress, wonderful. And she's the one that broke the contract rules, you know. I had the pleasure of working with her, but I had been on the board of directors at our union, the Screen Actors Guild, a couple of times, and you know, we always made mention of that, because while it wasn't slavery, it was a whole majestic world. And all of us here, I think, worked before you guys that are sports fans, what you would call free agency, and where they're making 7, 8 times what we made. Things cost a little more now too, but they didn't have, as Fred said, they didn't have the ability to work with these giants, these wonderful people who loved Hollywood. You know, even way back when it was called Hollywood Land, you know, when they invented it, some people had a little track and they planted hollies around it because they believed it was good luck. And they called it Hollywood Land. And when they promoted it, they put the sign up, Hollywood Land. And it was years later that they took the land off. Someone had committed suicide, oddly enough, off of the N or the D or something. And then it was Hollywood itself, the big sign. But we had a lot of things. The reality shows today, that's what we call the con game, you know, in New Orleans. They call that the con game because they make you believe that it's all spontaneous, and none of it is. I mean, you know, they're walking across the desert. Well, what about the cameraman and the sound man? What are they doing? They're walking across the desert too, and they're carrying their generator. And what about lunch for the cameraman? You know, and who's going to be the handsomest man of the world?
And
they got that picked out ahead of time, you know.
Bus that is following behind.
Absolutely, and you know, I tell you, you know, it's a sucker game. You know, if you want to believe it, go ahead. It's a $64,000 question. You remember that sucker game? They told the guy all the answers. Well, that's what they do. You know why they do them that way? They're cheap. They're cheap to produce. They don't get paid a lot. You know, they stand there with a little bit of clothes on, flex their muscles. Who's going to be and let's do makeover queen. Oh, here's an ugly person. Let's make this ugly person less ugly. Well, forgive me, but they don't look too good when they caught her there either. And that's all decided ahead of time. You know, they write scripts on those things. Don't go for it.
Hello
Okay.
there.
Yes,
Oh,
Howard.
by the-
For Francis.
She commented on working in South Pacific with Mitzi Gaynor.
Okay, working on South Pacific with Mitzi Gaynor, France.
Well, I didn't speak English in those days. She didn't speak French. So most of my conversation was with Rosanna Brazzi and Lydia Brazzi and Joshua Logan, which were only three people in the entire state that spoke French. Mitzi, I think, made an absolutely glorious job. I've watched South Pacific many times and very recently, and I don't think anyone could have brought that spontaneity, that bubbleness, you know, bubbling spring kind of feeling that she had as, you know, I think love is a wonderful thing, and I'm going to wash that man out of my hair. And I understand that she's an extraordinary performer on the stage, which most of her career she has done that. I'm sorry that she has not done as many films as she should have done. But a wonderful talent, a great singer, and just, you know, to be eaten alive. I mean, she was as darling as you could get. But I did not have anything except at the end, one tiny little line that she made in my direction. But no, I didn't have any contact with her, basically because of the language barrier. I spent most of my time with the dogs of the island. I would raid the garbage pail of the crew and the movie set, and then I would fill up a package and I go and feed the dogs.
Okay, we got time for one more question.
May I say a few words?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I want to tell the story about when we were working at 20th Century Fox. And it was with Glenn Miller and his orchestra. And Dal Lafzani, who was the president of 20th Century Fox, called everybody because he wanted us to hear this new song called Chattanooga Choo Choo. And we went to the rehearsal hall, and there was Harry Warren, who wrote the music, and Matt Gordon, who wrote the lyrics. And we were all there. Milton Berle was there. Dorothy Dandridge was there. Glenn Miller and his orchestra was there. Sonia Honey, and everybody was there to hear this new song called Chattanooga Choo Choo. And so Harry Warren started playing it on the piano. And Matt Gordon started singing, "Pardon me, boy, is this the Chattanooga Choo Choo?" And I'm listening to this thing, and I say, what the hell is that? I didn't like get up. Now, Glenn Miller was sitting right next to me. And I said, Glenn, what do you think of this song? He said, it stinks. Now, that goes to show you, you never know what's going to be a hit or a miss. It was Glenn Miller's first gold record at that time. Nobody else made a gold record. He made a gold record for Chattanooga Choo Choo. And my brother and I, we can't get off the stage wherever we work, all over the world. We have to sing Chattanooga Choo Choo and dance it. And it was good for Glenn Miller, and it was good for us.
Hey, Babariba.
Hey, Babariba.
I know everyone has more questions, but we have to get ready for a show tonight, so I have to end this right now. But I want to thank Mr. Nicholas, Franz, Joyce, and Mr. Nelson. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for being here.
And thank you.
All right, everybody, let's everybody sing one chorus of Chattanooga Choo Choo. I think we all know.